Right, I think we'll make a start. Well, yeah, good morning, everybody, and welcome to our Speed Kills Malware session. I hope it's not too hot and sweaty where you are this morning. I know we've got people outside the UK as well as inside the UK, and we are certainly breaking records today with our temperatures in the UK, so it's a bit sweaty here. But it's great to see a very healthy turnout for our 30-minute session this morning. I'm not surprised. I think there's definitely some keen interest to understand more about the power of deep learning in the cybersecurity space, and I suppose you could say, what the future looks like. Well, my name is James Bale. I'm the head of marketing and insights at Contact Cybersecurity. Now, of course, technologies abound in cybersecurity, and most businesses have many, often probably too many, plugged into their estates to keep the bad guys out and keep our data protected. And the use of solutions to better detect threats and respond to them quickly is growing at an accelerating rate, and that's not surprising, considering the much documented, ever-escalating volume and complexity of attacks that we are seeing today. And EDR, endpoint detection and response solutions, do remain critical, of course, but the thing is they only take effect once a virus is already inside your network. So I ask myself the question, what if you could kill threats before then, and before they even start to encrypt? Now, I'm sure we've all read about machine learning and AI and their impact on cyber technology, but today we're going to hear about deep learning, so moving things on yet further. And actually, some of those, famous cyber and ransomware attacks we've all read about, could have been preventable with this kind of technology. And our partners Deep Instinct are very much at the forefront of the development of this technology. And what you're going to see today, and you can't often say this, but what you're going to see today is really quite unique. So I'm delighted that we have with us this morning Graham Houghton. He is the EMEA channel manager from Deep Instinct. How are you today, Graham?
Hi, good morning, James. I'm good and hot, yes.
Good and hot. I can relate to that. Well, before I hand over to you, Graham, quick bit of housekeeping. So, as I'm sure you're familiar with Teams, but the Q&A you can see there at the top of your screens. Any questions you have throughout this session, do please type them in there. We'll sweep them all up at the end. Make sure you've got all the information you need from this session. Great. Okay. Well, I'll hand over to you, Graham. Now, thank you very much.
Thanks, James. Really appreciate that. Welcome, everybody. Good morning. Hopefully you're all in a nice air-conditioned office. I'm also in an air-conditioned office, but that just involves opening the window. So today it's not making much difference. So, right, let's move swiftly on. Deep Instinct, technology based on deep learning, which I'll cover in a moment. As a company, we've been going for about 10 years, but only selling into Europe for maybe the last 2.5. And we've had some significant success. I'll cover some of that as well as we go through. So we are pioneers in this marketplace. We're the only company able to use deep learning for cybersecurity. So we're starting to see deep learning come into our everyday lives. Tesla use it to stop their self-driving cars bumping into each other. Netflix use it to tell you what you should be watching on TV tomorrow night. And Canon use it. If you're a photographer, then they use it in their new mirrorless cameras to detect the difference between a human face and an animal face, for instance, and things like that. They're fairly basic uses of the technology. We're the only company that's developed this for cybersecurity. We've developed deep learning. We've got some of the foremost experts in deep learning globally, and they're the founders of Deep Instinct 10 years ago, and still with the company. And so we're really pioneering. We're right at the leading edge of this technology, and the differential between that and anything else that's gone in the past is surprising. So let's just move swiftly on. The issue we're seeing in the market is the attack complexity is growing exponentially all the time. The bad threat actors are always ahead of the game. Our human ability to respond and the technologies that are available to respond to these growing sophistication of attacks is flatlining. and that leaves a big risk exposure in that middle between what the bad threat actors can do and our human ability to respond. We've seen an 800% increase in ransomware over the last 18 months. They've developed ways to reverse engineer machine learning algorithms, and that's adversarial AI. So they're throwing AI against AI with machine learning. The rise in zero-day attacks, multi-stage attacks, supply chain attacks. And so all of these tools that are available take a lot of resource to manage, and also they take a lot of resource to manage their output in terms of the rise in false positives, because they miss so many attacks. If they were all great technologies, then we would be seeing no attacks at the minute, but the attacks and the sophistication of them are increasing all the time. 250,000 new malware variants per day. It's very difficult to keep up with that number when you've got something that's signature based. And IBM tell us that it's 212 days to identify a breach and 75 days to contain it. The cost involved in waiting 212 days just to find it and then another 75 days to contain it is immense. And the traditional approach, it's very reactive. New piece of malware comes out, creates a massive infection. We analyze the features, we develop the signatures, the heuristics, maybe some machine learning in there as well. And then we go around again, new malware, massive infection, analyze the features, signature, heuristics, machine learning, and around we go. The reactive cycle continues and continues and continues, but it's all after the event. 74% of malware last year was undetectable to signature-based tools. That's simply because they don't have the signatures or the heuristics to be able to pick it up. Almost 3/4 of malware is missed using signature-based protections. I mean, they're just, not suitable for the modern day threat, essentially. This man knew a little bit about life and things, and he famously said, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And essentially that's what we've been doing in cybersecurity for 40, 50 years, ever since the PC was first invented. We've been trying to protect it, and we're using the same techniques and the same technologies. We're using signature-based tools. We're using machine learning. Machine learning is essentially 40-year-old technology. It was never designed for cybersecurity, and so we've kind of shoehorned it in. It does an okay job, but it doesn't cope with the new modern-day threats. So you've got signature-based legacy solutions. Then you've got the era of AI, which is machine learning. We consider machine learning to be legacy. It's not very accurate, very labor intensive. And we've developed deep learning. We spent 10 years developing our deep neural network. Our deep neural network consists of 5 billion examples of things that are not only bad, but things that are good. We train the brain and we load an artificial brain into the endpoint. We train the brain in what's both good and bad, and so it can recognize the differential. And we can do it any threat, anywhere, and prevention is in zero time. And real time is no longer fast enough for some of these new modern attacks. And I'll go more into the benefits of deep learning as we get to the end of the presentation. So we're moving the game here. Organizations, all of the EDR guys, all of the antivirus, EPP, all say you have to have a security strategy that says assume breach. And all of those technologies, they do a great job of giving you a lot of information about the threat and about the results of the breach. But it's all after the breach. It's all post-breach and post-execution. So we've raised the level of anti-malware effectiveness from a detection, response, remediation, threat hunting, through to a prediction and prevention model, which prevents pre-execution. And that's the true Oxford Dictionary term of the word prevent. That's not prevent after it started to execute. It's prevent before it starts to execute, prevention as opposed to cure. And we can do it pretty much anywhere, any environment. We've got iOS versions, Android, Chrome, Linux, Windows, Mac. We don't really care whether it's a laptop or a server. So it has less than 150 meg footprint, this small brain that we load into the endpoint, and uses less than 1% CPU. And at this point, most people are going, hang on a minute, this sounds a bit too good to be true, but believe me, we really do what it says on the tin. So what we ask our customers is this: where do you sit? Where do you sit in terms of the level of protection? How protected do you think you are? 0% being, you know, everyone sat around, they've got all their passwords on post-it notes around their monitor. They're clicking on every phishing email that comes in because they don't understand and they don't care. And then 100% is kind of the Fort Knox equivalent of cybersecurity. Most people go, well, we're probably, you know, 50, 60, maybe 70% of the way there. But if we look at how this has been made up over the last few years, obviously you've got antivirus. This is a no-brainer. Sometimes organizations need it for compliance reasons. And it does an okay job on known threats. But it's never going to help you with 0 day. It's never going to help you with ransomware, and it's certainly not going to help with an AI attack. But it does create high level of false positives, false negatives, big SecOps burden on the security analysts. And so organizations then go, well, okay, we need something a little bit more. And then they turn to what we've termed reactive artificial intelligence, which is machine learning. So every single EDR, XDR out there is running machine learning. There are a couple that do purport to have deep learning, but it's really about malware recognition. No greater impact than the difference between a human face and an animal face. That's the kind of place where they use it. Is certainly not about prevention pre-execution. So this reactive AI, machine learning, it's better on unknowns, but not enough. It really needs the heuristics and the signatures to be able to pick off certain things. And it's all after the event. It's all an assumed breach strategy. And it shifts the focus to investigation services, giving you information about the breach and the effect it's had on all the endpoints. Sometimes there's a rollback facility, but it's all post-execution. So that leaves a big hole. And this is why there's been so many successful attacks over the last year to 2 years. Kaseya, Log4j, DarkSide, Lockbit, SolarWinds, Accenture, you name it. There's a whole bunch of them that have been compromised. And these guys are reverse engineering, as I mentioned, AI against AI. And so this is where the problem lies. Antivirus and machine learning, EDR, XDR. I mean, XDR is meant to be the next best thing since sliced bread, but it still just perpetuates the assumed breach scenario. And that's really where we come in. So we can replace all of those technologies. We can prevent viruses. We can prevent known malware, but where our strength is in unknown malware, 0 day attacks. We can block and prevent as new, never seen before 0 day attack, new, never seen before ransomware. We prevent ransomware. So we put a figure on it of 99.7%. And that's really, it's a bit like the Domestos advert, right? We kill 99% of all known germs. It gives us kind of a little bit of a let out on the 0.3, but generally most of our customers is upwards of 100%. And we've got more precision than any other technology. Our false positive rate is a guaranteed 0.1%. And I'm going to show you some figures as to why we can guarantee that and put $1 million behind what we're saying there. It's totally automated. We prevent pre-execution. We prevent in 20 milliseconds. So we do not even let the malware hit the machine. As it's beginning to compile on the hard drive, we've blocked it in less than 20 milliseconds. So it raises that level from assume breach to a prevention first strategy, which is key and much more positive when you're talking about your security posture. How do we do it? Basically, we've got that big neural network of 5 billion examples, and that's where we run these huge data training sets. And we continue running them, ready for when we're ready to launch a new brain. We teach the brain the essence of the DNA of every single type of attack. And I said it's both good and bad that we teach the brain. And when it loads onto the endpoint, less than 150 meg in footprint and less than 1% CPU in general use. So the brain lands on the endpoint, it's pre-trained and never needs touching again until maybe we're ready and we've added new features or something, and then about once a year we will then swap the brain out for a new one. But there are no updates. It never goes out to the cloud for supplementary analysis. It already understands the DNA of every single type of attack and actually thinks in situ. Doesn't learn in situ like everything else. So we've got some core commitments. Number one is prediction. We anticipate threats not yet seen. We understand the DNA of future attacks, and we've got this powerful deep neural network that we've pre-trained the brain on, and the brain, when it's in situ, makes highly accurate decisions without going out to the cloud for supplementary analysis, without using sandboxing, and never needs updating. We prevent 99.7% of unknown zero-day threats and ransomware. We do this in less than 20 milliseconds, and we're resilient to adversarial machine learning, and we're not dependent on the cloud. The management console is in the cloud. We just send up information about what we've blocked. That's all it's for, so you can run reports. And our promise, we've got the largest ransomware warranty. If you get hit by ransomware using Deep Instinct, then there's up to $3 million up for grabs. So we're putting money where our mouth is. The industry's only first positive warranty, a guarantee of less than 0.1%, and a total economic total cost of ownership in terms of the total economic impact. We're looking at 446%, and then a payback on the original cost of Deep Instinct within 3 months. And that was the results from a Forrester report, which is available. We've got a 1-page infographic on that, or a 26-page report if you want to go through it, but it's quite substantial. So we stopped 99.7% in 20 milliseconds, less than 0.1% false positive rate, and incredible accuracy, speed, and scale with what we do. And the reason we can do it is the differential between deep learning and machine learning, totally different technologies. Deep learning is unique. We're the only company able to do this. The cost of entry to be able to do this, it's taken us 10 years to build our deep neural network with some of the foremost experts in the world. But when the brain is trained with a vast amount of data, that's 5 billion examples, and we've got 50 feeds a day going into that all the time when we're training a new brain. But once the brain is loaded, we never touch it until we're ready to swap it out. But deep learning systems can match and even exceed the cognitive powers of the human brain. There are neurons, there's synapses, there's multiple layers, and so it's very much non-linear as opposed to machine learning, which is very linear, and looks at only about 2% of the available data. With deep learning, we're looking at 100%. So we're looking at 98% more information than anything running machine learning. And don't forget, everything else out there is running machine learning. So this makes us extremely accurate, and the brain has can make up its decisions based on the amount of raw data that it's seeing in a very short time. Machine learning needs domain feature engineering experts. You have to feed into it every day, all the tools, very resource intensive to run. And with deep learning, we sit there totally autonomous. Once it's loaded, we don't have to touch it again. Never goes out to the cloud for supplementary analysis. It just feeds up information about the threats that it's blocked. But apart from that, it never needs to have any supplementary analysis. Tools that are running machine learning also really only look at what's contained within a PE file, so fairly limited in what they're looking for. And so I mean, case in point, Defender, for instance, doesn't even look to see what's inside a weaponized office file, or any office file, whether it's weaponized or not. It just lets them all through. It's just one example, but we're looking for maybe 50, 60 different file types. We're looking for fileless attacks, PowerShell, scripting attacks. We can differentiate between what's legitimate PowerShell and what's malicious PowerShell as well. In essence, all of this means that we're extremely accurate, which is how we can guarantee that 0.1% false positive rate, and how we can block never seen before 0-day attacks. I'll show you some numbers now. So these are numbers, these are real numbers from the field, from our customers. So this is a false positive rate. So that MSS, I'm not going to go through all of these, but MSSP network on the left, that's a company called The 20 in America. They've been a customer of ours for about 4 years now. We scan for them every month about 20 billion files. And they've got over 2,700 end users and sub MSSPs within this network, so it's quite complex. So we're scanning just under 6 billion files a week. In this 1 month, we stopped over 2,000 attacks, but the false positive rate was 100. And it's probably one of the most demanding networks that you can try to do this in. So that gives us a false positive rate of 0.500002%, which gives you some idea as to how we can guarantee, and put $1 million behind, we can guarantee it's going to be less than 0.1%, because we know we're far much less. And some of our customers are actually have a false positive rate of 0, that education network, healthcare network, etc. And if you compare that to any of the EDRs, even if they're running at an incredible 1% of false positives, then that's still 200 million false positives that somebody's got to trawl through and chase ghosts through the network. So 200 million compared to 100. So the security analyst comes in the morning, goes, oh, what a lovely day I've got. I've only got 100 false positives for the whole month. Yeah, his job's happy. Nothing's worse for a security analyst to come in and go, how many million false positives have I got? It's not pleasant. So we often get asked, can we augment, can we replace, what do we do? Yes, we can replace any of the EDRs, but if an organization has spent a lot of money just putting in their EDR or their XDR, they're probably not going to want to throw it out immediately. So we can augment any other technology. Just taking Windows Defender, I'm not knocking Windows Defender here, but it's ubiquitous. So it's probably the one most that we get asked to augment. If you throw a bunch of mixed threats at this thing, it's going to miss them. There's going to be a high false positive rate. It's going to get you on that thermometer chart I showed you at the beginning. It will maybe get you up to the 50% mark, but it's only looking for PE files or what's contained within a PE file. If we augment it, then throw the same amount of threats at it, already we've reduced the false positive rate to a guaranteed less than 0.1%, and then 0 misdetections. We work just as well offline as we do online, and so everything's happy, and we lessen the load on Windows Defender. So what it actually can spend its time doing is things like threat hunting and things that it's good at. We can do the same with any of these other technologies. We can augment them all, and that's fine. We can also replace them all, but generally we allow our customers to be able to keep their existing technology and run with it. Again, case in point, this is actually from a proof of value or proof of concept that we did with a very large bank in the UK, and Defender pre-execution. It didn't actually do bad on portable executables. Mainly that's because these were a bunch of known attacks, so it had the signature and the heuristic base to be able to deal with that. But red is bad. Office documents didn't even look at. PDF, weaponized PDFs didn't even look at. Spreadsheets, no. Post execution it did better, but of course the fox is already in the hen house here, right? So post execution it did fairly well at, but even on Office documents it failed because Defender doesn't want to block an Office document, it just lets them all through. And then Deep Instinct prevention at pre-execution. So within 20 milliseconds, we'd blocked a lot. Our false positive rate was 0, whereas Defender was up around 15%. And it's the same with ransomware. So all of these attacks, as far as we're concerned, were preventable. Dark side, Colonial Pipeline, 4.4 million paid, and there was a lot of demands. We don't know what all these guys paid out to get their decryption key. And you do pay out these for this extortion, and there's no guarantee you're going to get the decryption key, but these were all preventable. We would have prevented them all within 20 milliseconds because speed is key in a ransomware attack. Okay, the title of this webinar is, speed. It's all about speed. And when a ransomware attack begins its mission, and this can come in various vectors, different methodologies, and we have 7 different engines within the tool. They're all part of the standard tool. We don't have any additions. You don't buy the tool and then, oh no, if you need that, you need to pay extra. There's none of that. It's one cost. And it's all included, but we've got 7 different engines within the tool to combat different types of methodologies of ransomware as it comes in. But within a few seconds, you've got thousands of files encrypted. Dark side is particularly virulent and quick to encrypt. And it spreads extremely quickly. It moves laterally across the network, and then you get full encryption. And you get the first extortion, which is, pay me Bitcoin for a decryption key. And so that's fine. But then there's a secondary extortion, because in most cases, well, in 85% of cases, there's some kind of data exfiltration. So they've got your files. Not only have they encrypted them, they've got them. And if you don't pay them a secondary bunch of Bitcoin, then they're going to put them on the dark web. And so it never stops. And at some point along this timeline, it could be immediately, it could be days, it could be weeks, it could be never. That large bank I just showed you there, they did some tests against us. They did some tests against not only Defender, but the likes of CrowdStrike and Channel One and all those other guys. And generally, they only picked up less than half of the 600 ransomware attacks they've had. The 300 literally just went through, didn't even pick up the encryption process. And then the other 300, they picked up the encryption process, but of course it's already begun. And so you're minutes, seconds, days into this process. So you've still got this whole assumed breach scenario. So it's extremely reactive. With Deep Instinct, we would have prevented them all pre-execution. We can prevent 750 times faster than any ransomware can encrypt. That's the power of deep learning. Within 20 milliseconds, we don't even let it compile on the hard drive. It's done. We can feed these events into a SOAR or SIM or even another EDR. And so it's extremely proactive security. Case in point, we've got over 3,000 customers globally. This is just one Seneca College in the US. They had an EDR, but they were a very small team, couldn't manage the input or the output, didn't know what happened when a machine got infected, and they just wanted to protect against malware and zero-day attacks in the first place. So prevention was key for them. Their small team couldn't manage the input or the output from most of the tools, and they've had no ransomware incidents since implementing the Deep Instinct platform. And we've been preventing unknown and zero-day attacks in there as well. This is that large bank I talked about, big bank in the UK, High Street Bank. Their #1 operational risk was ransomware. They'd had Semantic deployed for years, knew that it wasn't suitable. They've got E5 licenses everywhere. They've got Defender everywhere. They knew that Defender would only take them to 50% protection. So they were looking for something to layer on top of that to go from 50 to 100%. They tried CrowdStrike. They even deployed some of it and found that it didn't work that well. Missed half of the ransomware post execution. And so, they did a lot of testing and decided on Deep Instinct in the end. So we're not in a Gartner Magic Quadrant. There's a good reason for that, because we'd be in there on our own. We're unique. and a lot of the functionality of EDR and XDR we make obsolete because we've already blocked the attack. So for instance, the rollback facility is kind of great, but if there's no breach, there's nothing to roll back. We really block pre-execution. And so Gartner love what we do, and they are bringing out a new Magic Quadrant, which we're going to hopefully be able to take part in. But we're on Gartner Peer Insights. We're currently at 4.9 out of 5, which is extremely high. This is where our customers leave generally nice, hopefully nice comments about Deep Instinct and what we've done for them. There's one there. The product is very easy to deploy and manage. It's highly effective at identifying malware and preventing executions. Comments like that are all the way through there, so it's always good to check that page out there. So that's it. I'm gonna hand back to James now and see if you have any questions.
Great, and thank you so much. That was fascinating stuff. I love it. There's two stats really stick in my head. That ability to detect a ransomware attack within 20 milliseconds, it kind of blows me away whenever I hear that one. And the ability to predict over 99% of cyber attacks, kill them before they even start to encrypt. It's certainly very powerful stuff. Yes, we have had a raft of questions come in. We are slightly over our allotted time, so we'll cover off a few, and then we can perhaps reach out to you directly to cover off the rest. There's a couple perhaps I can tie together about ransomware. So there's one saying, how can you block against ransomware when no other company can? And a sort of challenge actually around whether any Deep Instinct protected organization has ever fallen victim to a ransomware attack. And Lockbit 3 was called out there. So if you could cover that whole ransomware piece there for us briefly, Graham.
Yeah, so the whole thing about deep learning is it needs a totally different mindset to go to think how it does things. And when you've trained, I guess our secret sauce is how we managed to train the brain, the new one that we're going to be launching, how we managed to train it on those 5 billion examples of things that are good and bad. It's like a big bubbling cauldron of things that are good, bad. We've got 50 feeds a day going into it from all sorts of malware repositories, from reversing labs, from VirusTotal. We're developing our own malware, and we throw all that into the mix. But the secret sauce is how we condense those 5 billion examples down into something which we can load on the endpoint, which has less than 150 meg footprint. And so that's the deep learning algorithms, and the brain is pre-trained on those all of that stuff, and it already knows the basic DNA of the attack. Every single type of attack it knows. Even zero-day attacks, there's very rarely you'll ever see something which has never been seen before in terms of an attack. It's always some kind of a variant on what's gone before, or uses some of the same methodologies. And so we are pre-trained. Anything else that's out there trains in situ. So, whether you've got an immune system that goes out and pulls information from all over the place, which takes time and is again after the event, then it's there. So we we inspect the basic binaries as it comes into the machine, wherever it comes from, whether it's a USB port or an email attachment or it's on a network or whatever it may be. As soon as it hits that machine, within 20 milliseconds, we've assessed it, often within a millisecond to be fair, and decided whether it's good or bad. So it's the whole different technology. It's a subset of AI, but it is totally different to the way machine learning works.
Perfect, great. Well, we've got lots more questions come in, so we'll just take a few more. I say pick up with people directly afterwards. There's one about MITRE attacks. So do you map events directly into the MITRE attack framework, Graham?
Yeah, so our process chain is very short. So if we've seen something that's malicious, it's seen it, blocked it, and prevented it from executing. But while we've done that, in that process, within 20 milliseconds, we've assessed what it is. We know whether it's a piece of ransomware, we know whether it's a dropper or a backdoor or a piece of malware or a virus, whatever it may be. So we classify it immediately. So we block it within 20 milliseconds, or within 50 milliseconds, there's a full report on the management console. But we do have links, and we can feed that information, all the IOCs that we've picked up, we can feed that all into If the MITRE framework is important to your organization, then we can feed it into that. So a security analyst that's actually investigating those kind of things can actually take information from Deep Instinct about the attacks that are hitting the organization, even though we've blocked them.
Perfect. Okay, we'll just go for one more. It's about whether Deep Instinct does it replace McAfee and Defender, or can it, and the likes of McAfee and Defender, or can it coexist, essentially?
Yeah, I mean, generally, if somebody's got E5 licenses, they practically get Defender for free. You know, we're not knocking Defender. It does an okay job. It's an okay EDR. It's based on machine learning and does what it says on the tin, but it doesn't prevent pre-execution. And it doesn't even look, as I mentioned, into a you know, office document, weaponized office documents, for instance, just lets them all through. So we can replace it, absolutely, but generally most people, because they've got E5 and ubiquitously around their organization, they want to keep it, and so we augment it quite happily.
Perfect. Okay, well, we've got a little over time, so we'll have to wrap up at this point. If you just click onto the final slide for me, Graham. Thanks so much. Yeah, so look, thank you so much, everybody. Really great attendance today. I hope you found it a stimulating session, really good food for thought. I know we didn't get to all your questions, but you know, you've got my email here and my direct mobile number. Do reach out. You've also got that reminder email you'll have had from me earlier this morning, so I know you've got my details. So a lot of the questions were anonymous, so a lot of people I can't reach out to directly. So do please forward those questions, you know, to me, and we'll get straight back to you on that. As a little thank you for attending, we've got one more thing to send you. We have 8 reasons why EDR is not enough guide, which pulls on similar themes, but it's a nice bit of bedtime reading just to kind of, you know, crystallize some of the things you've heard today. So we'll be sending that to you later today. And yeah, thank you very much once again, Graham, for presenting for us, and thank you, everybody. Have a great day. That's the end of our session.
Thank you, James. Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye bye.